Some words from Lamentations, chapter 3. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul that seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. For the Lord will not reject forever. Although he causes grief, he will have compassion, according to the abundance of his steadfast love. For he does not willingly afflict or grieve anyone. Come back with me, if you will, back in time, back to the year 587 BC, before my time, before all of your times. It is in many ways ancient history. But it's also a very tough time, a very difficult and challenging time, a time of turmoil and distress, summed up in the very word, Lamentations. And that English title sums up the very theme, because the book consists of a series of complaints about a disaster that has occurred in Jerusalem. The Babylonian army has destroyed Jerusalem and its temple, and deported many of the inhabitants, leaving only the poor and the weak behind. And the 5 poems which make up this book were almost certainly written in Palestine at this time of political and social and religious upheaval. Perhaps these laments were recited at the site of the temple itself. An ancient tradition holds that Lamentations was written by Jeremiah, largely because there's a passage in 2 Chronicles 35, verse 25, that says he uttered a lament upon the death of King Josiah at Megiddo. However, Lamentations mourns the loss of the city rather than the king. So Lamentations is now considered to be anonymous. Nobody completely knows who wrote it. The style is very different to the book of Jeremiah. Anyway, whoever wrote it, its starting point is the fall of Jerusalem, and would have been written in the months, the weeks, the months following that awful event. And as a result, people would have gathered there at the temple to mourn, to pray, to reflect, and to lament. And the whole book of Lamentations tries to explain or describe or somehow come to terms with this event. How could Jerusalem be destroyed? How could the temple be destroyed? It was unbreakable, sacred, and yet it happened. So there would have been around the place a real palpable sense of grief, of loss, of despair. The flip side of despair, as we know, is hope. And here in the middle part of the book is that glimmer of hope, contained in these verses from chapter 3. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases, as the Aramaic translation puts it. But interestingly, this verse alone can be translated in another way. Another manuscript, a Hebrew manuscript, puts it, we are not cut off. We are not cut off. That sounds very different to the tradition that we know and that we have come to understand, and yet it still makes sense. Because in the midst of disaster and turmoil, this is a celebration of survival. The temple has been destroyed. Jerusalem, the city itself, has been torn apart. And yet somehow we have survived. We have seen it through. We have come through the other side, surviving everything that has been thrown at us, surviving the destruction of the temple, a holy and sacred place, the place where God dwells. There is hope. Verse 32, a little bit later, says that he will have compassion according to the abundance of his steadfast love. Going back to verse 22, the familiar passage, the passage that we know, contains the words, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. Focus, dwell on that phrase, the steadfast love of the Lord. Steadfast love, or hesed. In English translations, hesed is translated with a variety of different words, including kindness, love, steadfast love, loyalty, favour, devotion, mercy. But one thing is more certain than anything else. This hesed love, this steadfast love, is more than just a feeling. It is about relationship. Relationship between us and God, God and us. Relationships between us and one another. It is both vertical and horizontal. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. And you may well say with some justification, easy for you to say it. When the person that I love, you might say, is in hospital with COVID-19, or when I'm separated from my loved ones that I haven't seen since back in March, or when I'm suffering unimaginable pain, or when I think more globally about the state of the world, endless wars, natural disasters that seem to make no sense. And yet, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. What steadfast love? I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't even believe it, we might say. Go away. I don't want to know. But deep down, we do understand that love, real love, whether human or divine, doesn't take away our suffering and pain, but true love somehow helps us to make sense of it, as we understand deep down, even if we find it difficult to articulate fully, that love and pain can coexist, that love and suffering can coexist, and that somehow in the deep mystery of God's love, we can bear pain and suffering, and that we will not be destroyed or broken by it, but amazingly we will be held by God, and that it is in the waiting, as the writer of Lamentations describes it. It is in the waiting, in the quiet waiting, and in the hoping that we discover God's compassion. Because God entered our world in a miraculous and unimaginable way in Bethlehem. God's answer to the world's suffering and pain wasn't to run away or to stand aloof, but to be incarnate, to be involved, present, here with us. Emmanuel, God is with us. And amazingly too, as we show compassion to each other, and as we speak words of kindness and love and peace, then that reality, the reality of God's love, continues through us, through you and me. Remember this. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is God's faithfulness.